Hello everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Last Minute FPL. This is Gameweek 7 podcast, the post wildcard podcast. Hi Vikas, how are you?
Hey everyone, nice to see you again. Welcome to the Last Minute Anti FPL podcast. If you do have any mini league rivals you do not want doing well, please do send them over here for you to shoot up the ranks.
That's a great way to start the podcast given how last week went. Let's dive into it. Uh, so contrary to our advice, the AI team had a fantastic week with 91 points, beat us by about 50 points each. Wildcard couldn't have gone any better. Palmer captain getting more than half the points. I mean, it didn't really matter who else it had, but Watkins and Guardiola also doing well definitely was a great sign for it.
Yeah, incredible. I think it's just very easy to see that Palmer captain really played into the hands of the AI team. It's just incredible. I think we spoke about this variance, right? Last podcast as well, that so far all players have been doing well. And that's not going to last. And I think it's just this week, those who had Saka, Haaland, and did not have Palmer took the brunt of it. And that variance will continue in the future weeks.
Yeah, and we'll dive deeper into it, but clearly the premiums that you pick and the captaincy that you pick is what's going to probably decide how well your season goes. And this was one of the better ones for the AI, if not the best possible. Going into the beautiful teams that we put together. First, my team with 44 points. I guess when you spend 15 million on a player out of your 100 and that player blanks, I mean, that's really going to affect your team. And in this case, both the premiums, Haaland and Saka, both without any returns in decent fixtures. If you actually think about it, all the mid-price options actually did well. Mbuemo, Semenyo, Rogers all scored. Havertz scored, maybe a bit lucky to score. And the defense is filled with the best defenses. So it's basically just the premium, Saka, Haaland and Diaz not doing well.
Yeah, I agree. I think some of the picks that we went with on the wildcard on the more reasonable budget options, they all did well, and we expected them to do well. So really happy with those points. I think I kind of shared a lot of similar players here in this team. Yeah, the real kicker here is Haaland and Saka severely underperforming Palmer, and that just blew up the whole wildcard essentially.
Yeah, and the timing of it is definitely unlucky, I would say, because yeah, over a period of weeks you can expect that that 20-point delta, but it just happening all in one week is unfortunate for sure. In the last minute, like the name of our podcast, just before the deadline, I ended up going with Havertz, simply because I knew that it looked like Raya was going to play, but I thought that there could be some benefit to having Havertz against Leicester and Southampton. And I also saw that Rico Lewis was starting, so I put him in the team, and I don't know, have some buyer's remorse there because he blanked, and now I don't know if he'll play week in week out.
Yeah.
Going to your team, very similar team, very similar score, 43 points. Again, like a midfield is the same, Solanke instead of Havertz, both doing similar. What are your thoughts on the team that you picked? I think more unfortunate for you because you had Palmer, you had Guardiola, so that must feel frustrating.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to the pre-wildcard team. I had Guardiola, Jota, Palmer, and I actually initially got Palmer for Haaland's tougher fixtures against Arsenal and Newcastle. But my team was in such bad shape, apart from Palmer, which forced me to wildcard. And in the wildcard, I just thought Saka had better fixtures and got Saka. That's it. Um, yeah, I'm not even going there to where the previous team was. Definitely, like way high. I mean, Palmer captain pretty much matches this team, beats this team. So the less said, the better. I think we look forward, we march on.
Yeah, and in fact, this screenshot doesn't even say that you played the wild card. So like I'm sure you wish that you still had it left. Uh, but yeah, I mean it like we said it again and again. You can't predict that Saka will do 20 points less than Palmer, especially when he has Leicester at home. I don't know what Brighton were doing honestly, and like we'll go into it. But let's take a look at. I think we have to do this. We'll get through this next topic, the mini league standings. Last week we were kind of celebrating that, oh, maybe the worst is over, and I thought I was in mid-table. Reality check, back down to 13th. You're at 15th. I've kind of swapped places with the AI team. AI team looking pretty at 8th.
I've been pretty consistent at the bottom too. I think it's you has been oscillating around, so I'm doing. I have a very consistent performance this season.
I mean, we've pretty much not had too much gap in points, but I see that there's a change at the top. Varun has dropped down to 4th, or even 5th, because there's a tie at 3rd. Shubham, again, last week he got more than 90 points. This week he got 89. Fantastic, rising to the top. And Joe, Tarun, and Bala also crossing Varun. I think Varun took our advice with the wild card.
Yeah, I think, but what this shows again is it's so swingy. Like, probably we can expect it to swing a lot. The points difference with Palmer is not going to be gained, I guess. Like, I don't expect this much of a swing, but yeah, I think there's still hope. That one of the things that I've been thinking about, we'll get into those topics later, is I think the season is very interesting from the perspective that FPL have priced players perfectly. So there's also a lot of opportunity to be more exciting and get some rank gains. And I think probably as the season goes on, we can actually like target some of the more exciting players, lesser owned players, and have some fun.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about this offline too, that in previous seasons, you typically had, like, if you're picking a squad of 11, maybe 13 or 14 so-called optimal players, and because of the way the prices were, like, there was kind of an obvious route to get to a good team. Now with 4 or 5 really high-scoring players and they're not attainable, there is the larger scope for variance, and even if you have a good team on paper, you don't know who's going to do well that week. So that could definitely have an impact. Okay, let's go into the previous game week's games. Yeah, I think I can get started on the United Spurs game. That was the so-called big game of the weekend, with the Sunday late kickoff. United was so lethargic. I mean, I think from an FPL point of view, it was all about the Spurs players. Brennan Johnson looks like a great option. I wasn't sure if he'd keep his spot in the team so consistently, but he seems to be starting. He's scoring a lot. Solanke could have had more returns. There was a fantastic save from Onana from a one-on-one. Less said about United, the better. Bruno got red carded. I think that's one thing that went well with my wild card. I was happy to get rid. But then, I mean, if I'd kept him, I would probably keep him for longer because now his suspension has been overturned. So not exactly great times for his owners. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be going near any United players anytime soon. Spurs have a good run of games, and yeah, I think their players are on our roadmap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I caught the Chelsea-Brighton game in the 7 a.m. Fixtures here. That the game is beautiful to watch as a neutral. I think those who didn't own Palmer actually got lucky because he could have had way more returns. Like, it was absolutely chaotic and crazy. Brighton played an extremely high line. Chelsea was just like lobbing the ball through. I think Palmer had a goal disallowed. He had a few assists which Jackson did not convert. Beautiful balls over the top. He looked deadly. Like, I mean, he's an exceptional player. I think everyone knows that. But from that number 10 role, given the way Brighton came at Chelsea, I think he was unstoppable in that game. So I do think net Palmer owners got what they deserved and probably less than what they could have got in that game.
Yeah, I think a couple of things stood out for me in that game. One is that there were those last minute injuries for Brighton in defense, which we didn't know about. And second, what were they doing with their tactics? Why were they playing such high line and playing into Chelsea's hands? I think that Chelsea would have found it harder to break down teams that sit back. I think Wolves were doing the same thing in that other high scoring game. And Palmer really thrives in such games. And
yeah.
he has such a consistent goal scoring record. He could easily be the new Mo Salah of FPL. Like he's such an elite finisher, and he's only going to get better because he's so young. Um, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
think with him, because he plays in that central position, yeah, goal scoring opportunity creation, he's at the center of everything. It's like the heart of all attacks. So there's so many ways to points, including penalties with him.
I mean, surely though, like I hope that as a non-Palmer owner, other teams at least sit back and make it difficult because when you he could have, like you said, he could have easily had 6-7 returns and it wouldn't have been surprising. Like you can't afford to have such a
Yeah,
cup basket.
I think over the season, the teams will change the way they play Chelsea because Chelsea have been subpar for the last 2 to 3 years, like really a mid-table team as such. So teams are not afraid to come out and play against Chelsea and get a result. But with increased competency, I think that will change. Like they will sit back more. Forest this weekend will be a much tougher fixture for the attack than Brighton. I don't know if Palmer can again come away with a double-digit haul in that game.
Yeah, I mean that wouldn't be surprising. Forest have looked solid, but and I think they may sit back a bit more, but it's still a plump fixture on paper. Um, Moving on to another game that I caught, the Arsenal Leicester game. Yeah, I think this was one game where I felt Arsenal defense was unlucky to concede two. Justin scored a worldie. They didn't really concede too many chances, and to be honest, they got a bit lucky to win in the end. Havertz's goal was such a freak goal. The ball deflected off the keeper and deflected onto him and went in the 99th minute. Uh, but I wouldn't be too worried as an Arsenal defense owner, double Arsenal defense owner. If you have two defenders, I think it's still the right move. Just keep it going with the big teams in defense. And like if you look at it, barely anyone kept clean sheets this week.
I think this is another thing which we spoke a bit offline. Like we have Arsenal defense highly reliable because of strong priors from before this season. This season's data is not as strong from a defensive perspective. So at which point do we lessen the prior from previous seasons and just, don't assume that Arsenal are the best defense in the league?
Yeah, I think like a couple of things, right? Like 2 years they were really solid in defense. It's still only 6 game weeks, so I would wait longer. And the other thing is, who would you go for? So if you have a spot for a premium defender, then keeping it to Man City, Liverpool, and Arsenal makes sense. But I wouldn't be against downgrading one of your premium defenders to a 4.5 defender, like if that allows you to get an extra premium in attack. So that's the question I would ask. I wouldn't question Arsenal's quality, but if you feel like you can get a more optimal team by sacrificing a premium defender, then by all means go for it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Do you want to talk about any other game?
Nothing else that really stood out. I think Jota coming away with 2 returns just when I got rid of him. That was pretty painful in the Liverpool game. But yeah, I think it's just a bit of variance there again. Yeah, anything else?
Yeah, I'll quickly touch upon the Newcastle City game. I think Newcastle did really well to keep City and Haaland quiet. Once they got the equalizer, there weren't too many chances for City. It was actually a pretty quiet game. And yeah, I mean, there will be the days where Haaland blanks, and that's the big downside of the kind of structure that we have. But yeah, I mean, he's also the guy who got 2 hat tricks in the first 6 games, and he had like more than 60 points already. So let's see how it goes. He still has some good fixtures on paper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Cool. So this is an analysis that we put together for the premiums, looking at last season's data and this season's data. As we discussed earlier, this season might just boil down to which premiums you own when. And when we do this kind of hokey-cokey between the premiums, we typically go for the ones who have good fixtures. So we just thought we'll see how the premiums did last year against the big 6 teams, the middle 8 teams, and the bottom 6 teams, and compare it to how they're doing this year. So right off the bat, you'll see that if you look at the 2023-24 data, Haaland has excellent numbers across the board. He's close to averaging 1xG even against the big teams, even in the middle teams and the bottom teams. So he's a solid option. Salah, he also has great numbers throughout, but he kind of underperformed when it came to points against the bottom six last year. But his XG numbers suggest that he was still getting the chances. Saka is more of a steady Eddie. Like he does exactly how you expect him to. His numbers against the big teams are slightly lesser. His numbers against the bottom six are slightly better. Palmer had an excellent season last year. His XG numbers were definitely helped by penalties. He got one penalty in every 4 matches. But if you look at those numbers, 1 XG, 0.8 XG, 0.98, even if you subtract the penalty XG, it's still really good. And Son, he's definitely a cut below everyone else when it comes to the XG, and even with points, like he's reliable for sure. You can see that his points per game is still 6.3, but like he definitely seems to be one level below, and maybe we should go for him when the fixtures are really good and someone else has bad fixtures. Any thoughts based on last year's data?
Yeah, I think that's the crux. Like what it's shown is knowing when to own these premiums. Of course, nothing's a guarantee, but at least from a data perspective, that's really going to be key. And maybe just taking that deeper level analysis to know who might explode, and even just like a few weeks switching around, I think could yield big returns. The thing that stands out here is like you said, right? Like we have Saka and Palmer, very similar price range. Very strong data against the bottom six, and I think we all got Saka for some of the easier fixtures here against Southampton, Leicester, not the best defenses. So this is encouraging to just view how he's performed against the bottom six last season. It's encouraging for the next 1 or 2 games, but looking at Palmer's statistics here throughout, I think just moving from Saka to Palmer maybe after the next two seems like a very reasonable choice. Son is again in my thoughts personally, but this data seems way lesser than what I expected. Like I thought Son would really compete with all the other options, though he did have a drop off last year. Maybe if you look at 22, 23, it's going to be much better. But yeah, like I think really, really strong insight here on this one.
Yeah, I think Son definitely saw a slump after Kane left. That combination and that chemistry definitely affected him. And I think in 2024-25, if you look at the data, I know it's a very small sample size so far. Palmer has that one extremely amazing stat against the middle eight, the 1.86 XG per game and 15.5 points per game, mostly because of the 25-pointer that he got. But if you look at the other players, they also have like Haaland, for example, against bottom six has 1.85 XG and he got 2 hat tricks. So and again, Haaland is elite. Like you can see again, he has 8 points, 7.5, 17, and even Salah has. I think that was the United game where he got 17 points. I cheated a bit and put United in Big Six still. Saka, on the other hand, his numbers seem to be slightly lower. It is a little concerning, but it's still early days, and like his numbers against the bottom six still look excellent. 0.95 XG and 7.5 per game, and I think that's what I'll be really interested in seeing, the middle eight and bottom six numbers, because we do tend to move around the premiums as much as possible when they have the tougher games.
Agree. Yeah. I think the 24-25 data probably still too raw, given that we have like 3 splits here and it's just 6 games played. But tracking this through the season, I think it's going to be extremely valuable to just move these players around.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think the main takeaway for me here is that all the premiums have great data in last year and this year, and it still kind of makes sense to go with whoever has the good fixtures and to not panic. But yeah, let's see how this evolves as the season goes, because that could tell us, if Palmer is putting up numbers consistently above, or let's say he's crossing Saka or crossing even Salah as an option, that's something that we should see here.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's move on to the team attacking stats. Spurs, after their incredible performance against United, where they got more than 5 XG in this game, they shoot right to the top of the
honestly.
table. Yeah. I think like that's like they've gone to the top. Chelsea also have jumped quite a bit after that game. United still highlighted in green because they're underperforming, but I don't think that's going to last for too long. Not the green highlight, but the XG numbers also I feel are going to see a drop. But look at this: the big six are in the top six, at least in this table.
Yeah, it's shaping up that get the best attackers from the traditional best teams, and that's what the data's showing as well.
Yeah, and interesting to see Leicester have gone to the bottom. They've crossed Ipswich, and they still scored 2 goals against Arsenal. But yeah, I think, like you said, table's taking shape, and also if you see, there's not too many teams deviating from their XG. Only 3 out of the 20 are. So as this data becomes more significant, we expect to see that coming closer.
Yeah, it's really nice to see Bournemouth up there. It's really matching the eye test as well because they look really exhilarating when they attack. Whichever games I've seen of Bournemouth, they just look a very exciting team. I think that's why we got Semenyo as well. We should see how this kind of holds as their fixture stiffens, and whether they're actually going to be options or not.
Yeah, I think they did do well in the two hard games that they had against Liverpool. They created a bunch of chances, but yeah, again, their fixtures are turning in a couple of weeks. It'll be interesting to see for sure. Cool. Let's look at the defense stats now. Yeah, Liverpool and City still at the top, keeping up fourth there. Arsenal still conceding more than 1 xg per game, still a little concerning, but I'm hoping that that changes soon. United have dropped heavily. They've gone down to 16th. And Everton and Wolves are the only two teams other than United who are deviating from their XG. But yeah, I think this table is similar to what we've seen in the last couple of weeks with Liverpool, City, Forest at the top, and like we were thinking that Arsenal will slowly make a rise, and they are. They were in the bottom half for the past couple of weeks. They've moved up to 7th.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's again kind of in some ways taking shape. There are swings, like you said, United with that because there are such less games played. One game really swings wildly, like 5 xg being created. There are still swings here, but don't think I'm going to get Martinez, kind of like what I was suggesting before.
Yeah, good choice. And yeah, let's look at some of the games next week now. And also, one thing to note in this table, again, Ipswich have jumped up 2 places. Leicester have gone right to the bottom, and I'm a little surprised to see Brentford at 19th. That's not something I'd been tracking, but looks like their defense has not been doing so well.
Yeah, I think though they did have a few tougher fixtures, so that might have played a small part as well there.
Yeah. Cool. These are some of the next week's games. Definitely juicy one for Palmer owners with Forest at home. Haaland has a great fixture at home, and so does Saka. Again, we could see a huge variance if one of them fails to deliver and like one or two of them go off. What are you expecting from this weekend?
Yeah, I think more of the same, right? It's very hard to predict who's going to go off and who's going to blank and who's going to get lucky and who's going to get unlucky. I think really strong fixtures for Arsenal, Man City, even Spurs with how Brighton's kind of defending. And the Spurs Brighton game could be absolutely crazy. Like 2 high lines, there could be 22 players at the halfway mark. I'd probably be really looking forward to seeing that game. Even the Chelsea Forest game, I'm very curious to see how that's going to play out because I don't think Forest are going to come out and attack Chelsea compared to some of the other teams that we have played. So I think it seems like it's going to be a stiffer test on paper. I'd be curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, and the other game is Villa United. I think from an FPL perspective, it's more about the Villa players. Watkins has come right back into form, scoring double-digit returns on 2 consecutive game weeks. They beat Bayern midweek. What a great result for them. So yeah, I think they'll go into the game fully as favorites. And I think the only game we haven't spoken about, which is of some FPL interest, is the Palace Liverpool game. It's kind of tricky game on paper, but Palace have been a little disappointing for me. Eze is still blanking. So there's a lot of people who held on to him in the wild card. Although none of the players in that spot did return in the previous game, Eze, Diaz. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if they turn up at home.
I think another thing we should probably start tracking, maybe not now, but few weeks, is how the midweek European fixtures are going to affect these teams. Like, and it's going to affect teams who have lesser depth more. Chelsea are playing two different levels completely. They have Chelsea A and Chelsea B. Not going to affect them too much, I think. But few other teams, it's going to affect them more, and I think we should probably start seeing some impact there on the weekend fixtures.
Yeah, I think that's definitely taking a toll for United. They're playing the exact same team in Europe, and the European fixtures are affecting the Premier League, and the Premier League fixtures are affecting the European games. I think that's what's happening there. Cool. Let's look at the fixture ticker now. Easiest fixtures first. Everton and Leicester still at the top.
Yeah, Everton, Leicester, still great fixtures. I think the ones that stand out, depending again on this season's data in attack, Spurs, Man United, I'm saying it, Man City, strong in attack, good fixtures coming up. Bruno Fernandes, anyone? His red card's overturned. Um, I'm not recommending Bruno Fernandes, but he's in my thoughts if United do pick up some form. But I'll wait for United to pick up some form before getting him in. I think it's too big of a risk. Also, just like looking at the defensive aspect, Forest still doing strong, great fixtures, so really still a good team to target. They're not keeping clean sheets of late, but and they're playing Chelsea next, so not a team to immediately target, but they still have good fixtures as this ticker shows, and their data is good. Spurs and Man City are the ones that stand out. So you don't have Man City. I think Man City, most people probably just don't Haaland. There's an opportunity here to again gain some points with some players who, people may not get them, like Bernardo, Silva, or Foden. These are players that, there's some minutes risk, but there is a high upside given kind of their fixtures and how strong their attack is.
Yeah, I think my only worry with that is, see, like I went for Rico Lewis because it felt relatively low risk with a 4.7 defender. But if you get a Foden and he doesn't start, look at how swingy the premiums are. Like that could be a path that's really scary. Of course, if he plays against Fulham at home, and I think he will start this weekend, he could rack up the goals. But like very next weekend, you're waiting for the lineups, and you're looking for leaks. You won't know whether he's going to play. And I think with Palmer and Saka being options, and that they're going to start, I wouldn't go there yet.
Yeah, fair point. Then I think few of the other players that we own, like from Brentford, still look good. Ipswich, Denab had a great week, good fixtures. Again, another team to look at if you want to look at a few mid-priced assets as well.
Cool. Let's go to the tough fixtures.
Yeah, the Newcastle again still in the middle of a tough stretch. Again, not changed too much here. Chelsea is rising up here in this list. So their fixtures are going to become more difficult, and this is where I think there's going to be some uncomfortable conversations on Palmer, and maybe some controversial moments in this pod in the future. So yeah, I think the real test for how Chelsea is going to perform is probably the next 3 to 4 weeks, where it's not going to be as easy as how it's been.
Yeah, I think both in the league and in FPL, like this will be kind of a litmus test for Palmer in terms of whether he's the new Salah, because Salah in the past you just keep him no matter what the fixture is. I think this is where managers are going to have to make a call on how they judge him, because we still don't know. Like we don't know how good he is going to be this season, and I think the next few fixtures will be an important data point for that.
Yeah. I think we still mark these yellows because the team data is still so strong that there's still probably nothing wrong in having these players over the tougher fixtures. Few teams that not marked yellow and may own a few of their assets. Bournemouth here, Aston Villa surging up. So there is some increased difficulty here from an FTR perspective, and teams to keep an eye out on in the coming weeks.
Cool, great insights. Let's go into that position-wise analysis. We'll start with the forwards. Yeah, I think looking at the data, Solanke's rising up. Week on week, his numbers are just getting better and better. His XGI is almost 1 per game now, and only Haaland is there for company at that level. So that's why I've recommended people to buy Solanke if they don't own him already. And the other option that I've recommended is Watkins. In the past couple of seasons, he's kind of been fixture proof, being the steady goal scorer. But then I saw that Duran scored in midweek again. Yeah. I'm wondering if with Champions League there, could he see a benching when an easier fixture comes into play? But for now, those are the two players I've recommended.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to see how it plays out, because Duran in his substitute appearances has been fantastic. Whether he replaces Watkins or maybe plays with him and Morgan Rogers gets benched, it could go either way, because you can imagine Watkins can easily drop back and play a more of a kind of like a number 10 or second striker as well, or Duran could do the same. So one to keep an eye out on. The other thing that's really interesting here is Jackson still like showing up pretty strong in the data. Again, do we want to kind of own him, given we just spoke about the make or break Chelsea fixtures? Not too sure, but that he's still someone who has an extremely high ceiling, in my opinion.
I see you've recommended Vardy to buy.
Yeah, Leicester fixtures, again, purely based on fixtures. Leicester's fixtures are, as we saw in FDR, top. Vardy's on penalties. He's starting. So he's a player that, if I am looking at a cheaper option, he would be the first one that I would go to.
Yeah, so I have him in avoid. Two reasons, honestly. First one is that Leicester, as we saw, were 20th in both attack and defense data. And the second reason is that, and I've also put Delap in this, because again, Ipswich were 19th. But the main thing is that both Vardy and Delap, I think a lot of managers are making a double transfer to try getting that third premium in. So they're sacrificing some of these good mid-price options like Havertz or Solanke. I don't think that is worth it. And that's why I've kept Havertz in keep as well, because he has Southampton at home this week, and I think it would do well to show some patience, especially with these players scoring regularly. Now, if you can somehow downgrade Calvert-Lewin to Vardy and that's helping you get Palmer, then I think that's fine. But I would only get Vardy as a makeshift.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. It's just at 5.5, I think I'd probably just go him. DCL looks more convincing. I have him, so probably just going to keep him and bench him, which was anyway like the thought process there.
Yeah, I think with Rogers being an option, it's easier to bench DCL, but it still feels a bit weird to be benching someone who's 6+ million.
Yeah.
Cool. Anything else in the forward section that catches your eye?
No, nothing else has changed. I think Isaac is still a sell because he has some injury concerns and Newcastle's fixtures are still tough. So given he's pretty highly priced, so many other options. So we still have him. I think get rid.
Cool. Okay, let's move on to the midfielders. A lot of options and a lot of controversial advice on this sheet. I think the key one that I'm giving out here is to avoid Palmer and to keep Saka. But honestly, that's just a this week thing.
This should be the thumbnail of the pod.
Yeah. I mean, of course, like if it's a call you're making and you feel comfortable with it, go for it. I personally wouldn't sell Saka before Southampton at home. We've seen how he's been. Like he could be the one who goes off. Now, I mean, I don't think he'll get a 25-pointer, but the only reason I'm saying avoid Palmer right now is because of the tough fixtures that are around the corner. And you've probably missed the boat, and you'll just end up chasing last week's points, which will be a definite way of not doing well. But if you judge that Palmer is the new Salah, or Palmer's quality is such that he's fixture proof, then go for it. Like, I'm the kind of manager who would prefer to wait and see if that's actually true.
No, yeah, that's a fair analysis. I think given a straight shot between them for this week, I'd definitely still choose Saka.
Yeah, but again, Forest at home is not the great most difficult fixture. So if you're able to get him through some other route, then I wouldn't be against that.
Yeah, for midfield, I have Foden and I think we spoke about McNeil last week, having really good data and potential options on the wildcard. Uh, he did well as well. So really, really, really good potential here in the mid-price bracket. And given we spoke about kind of like someone like Semenyo, these Bournemouth are kind of not playing well, or there are issues with Bournemouth's attack going forward, really easy switch to McNeil because strong fixtures, good data. I think he's a really good option there at that mid-price range. I also have Foden because spoke about kind of the ceiling and the upside, which seems very important this season. So to capitalize on the sea of greens for Man City, which is the much easier fixtures, I think Foden is someone I would look to target. If playing it safe, maybe wait a week and then see how it goes. But I think if you're jumping on him this week is maximizing the amount of points you can get from Foden.
Yeah, I think if you're going for him, it's got to be this week. Like he's playing really well. He even spoke, I think, after the game saying that he feels like he's back to his best, and even Pep praised him a bit. So if I mean, it's always going to be a risk if you want Foden. So I think earlier the better before you miss the boat. The two other players I haven't buy, one is Mbeumo. I think he speaks for himself. Like he's doing really well in the absence of Tony. He's always done well. But the one player who surprised me this season is Brennan Johnson. And if you look at the AI projections, he's behind only Palmer, Salah, Saka, and Diaz. Like he's ahead of Son and Madison in that
It's a really good call.
trio of Spurs players. He's at a great price. If he keeps starting, I think he's a great option. In previous weeks, the AI kept projecting him high, but I wasn't sure about his expected minutes, so I was throttling it. But then, like, he's just been doing the job every week, so I think he'd be a good option to get.
Yeah, no, great shout on that. I think I have Son on the avoid partially because of kind of like the data we spoke about before, but also some injury concerns. But he's also another player that I potentially will target moving Saka to, like in the future, depending on if he's back and how the Spurs team shapes up, and like if Brennan Johnson is still a good asset, then that makes Son a little bit worse of an asset because of the price difference. So I think depending on how that plays out, Son could remain in the avoid section or someone I just swap Saka to. But right now he's avoid.
Yeah, I'm looking at Son as well when Saka's fixtures turns. Son has like 4 or 5 really good fixtures in a row. And he'll be a great option. If Palmer doesn't keep doing the job, I think we could probably go to Son.
Right.
And in Cell, I have Bruno and Eze, the two players I started with in Game Week 1 who've still not been doing so well. I think if you've still held on to them, probably it's just time to cut your losses. There's a lot of mid-priced options for doing well.
Palace have been very surprising. Losing Olise has actually, I mean, it's pretty expected that it's going to take a toll, but it's taken a very big toll on them. Like they thought they would continue some semblance of last season's form, but it's been disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, also, like, they are a bit of an up and down team. They're unpredictable. They'll suddenly go on a run of games where they beat the big teams and then they mess up some really simple games. So not exactly surprising, but so many games in a row for Eze to blank is definitely frustrating as owners. Okay, let's move on to defenders then. And we've been consistently saying this, I think week in, week out, that clean sheets have been tough to come by, and the only teams that you can kind of rely on are City, Liverpool and Arsenal. And we're still saying the same thing when it comes to the AI projections or even in our recommendations. But I've deviated slightly from that. I'm saying that Van de Ven is a player I really like. Not just because he got the assist last week, but he's only 4.5. I know Spurs doesn't have the best defense. He's recorded the fastest speed of any Premier League player. So if you saw the way he just burst through the entire
Yeah.
United defense to
He's
get
a
that
very
assist.
exciting player. Like, because he runs forward, is very comfortable with crossing the ball and the ball at his feet. Had him sometime last season, towards the end of last season. Very, very fun player to watch.
Yeah, and he's nailed down that spot, and he looks like the real deal, as at least from a Spurs point of view. Not sure about FPL, but I think he could be slightly better value than like an Everton 4.5 or a
Yeah.
like one of these mid-price teams 4.5, like a Brentford defender and so on. Oh yeah, I just realized that I have Flecken and Brentford are 19th in the.
Oh God.
But yeah, I think. What about you? Who I see that you've put Guardiola in by.
Yeah, I think it's just the City defender that you think is going to start the most with the really nice set of fixture run they have. Uh, but echoing the same sentiment, Liverpool maybe a little less, but Trent is not someone that needs a sell unless, of course, you're targeting like another a Palmer or another premium in attack. Uh, Man City, Arsenal. I would love for Spurs to become an option. And like they're solidifying the defense. It really throws out Van der Ven, Porro, these options as some relief in terms of moving out maybe a Gabriel to a Van der Ven, or not a Gabriel, a Saliba. I have a Saliba to a Van der Ven. It's going to free up some money, so that would be really interesting. Lewis is in my void because I think it's just a little bit hypocritical given I said buy Foden, but I think you have to make your choices there in terms of how many players you want risking minutes in a team. So I think if he's the only player that's kind of like at a minutes risk, that's fine. But depending on where you're at, it's a headache, as we spoke in the same breath in terms of Foden.
Yeah, I think the AI team agrees with you on Guardiola from a City defender perspective. It also rates Lewis highly, but of course that's dependent on stats. Yeah, I personally still feel like, given the fact that he started in midfield and also in the Champions League game, he created like 1.6 xg. He looked amazing, but the only downside was he played 90 minutes, whereas Guardiola got a 75th minutes up. So you're always going to have that worry of whether he's going to start. Personally, if there are no leaks, I'll just start him and see. Because I mean, the other option is Mikalenko. I know he has good fixtures, but I'm willing to take that chance. I think that there are attacking returns around the corner for him, and it's still worth a gamble, I feel, because City defender, if he does manage to keep a spot in midfield or even in right back, I think he could be great.
Agree. Yeah.
And one thing I've listed James Justin in avoid, and like a part of a larger conversation, he scored 2 goals and got 0 bonus because of the new bonus system. Because they conceded 4 goals, they just lose so much bonus for every goal conceded. It's kind of it kind of handicaps attacking defenders like Porro and like even Trent. If they don't keep a clean sheet, it's kind of sad in a way, because like historically you see that defenders, whenever they get an attacking return and create some chances, they get bonus.
That's why I think like players like Gabriel and Guardiola are so important, because if they revert to last season's form with clean sheets and have that attacking potential, they are kind of like the standout options in the game.
Yeah, agreed. And in Cell, I've got Ben White. Doesn't look like he's gonna be first choice. I mean, even if he is, he's not gonna play all the games, and so it's a bit of a headache. And he's more expensive than Saliba and Gabriel, so I wouldn't go there. Cool. Let's move on to goalkeepers now. Yeah, so in goalkeepers, I think if you're not on wildcard, I'd keep it pretty simple. I wouldn't make any keeper transfers unless you have Edison and it comes out that he's not playing. I think that I wouldn't spend too much time thinking about moves here.
Yeah, agree. I think I really wanted to keep Raya on the wildcard, just wasn't sure if he's fit. He's the only keeper that I would look at. Otherwise, it's just like I have Fleck and I'll keep him for the next 10 weeks maybe and just roll with it.
Yeah, and yeah, like we said, a little disappointing to see Brentford 19th after I got him. Henderson in the first few weeks wasn't great. And like, what's wrong with Arteta? Like, why does he have to play so many mind games? There was Leicester at home and he was acting like there was no way Raya's going to be back. And I don't know. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Odegaard suddenly played this weekend. Like Arteta just keeps everything close to his chest.
Super annoying. Why doesn't he think about the FPL managers?
Okay, cool. Now let's look at our teams for this week. Um, let me. Yeah, so AI team back at the top. It's in the top 1 million now, 700k ranked. Going with Palmer captain, no surprises there. Um, I think like great looking team on paper. The only concerns I think are the two Forest players playing against Chelsea. But everyone else I think has like even all three defenders have attacking returns in them potentially.
Yeah, and even Sells is fine with the goalkeeper and saves and so on. It's just really Wood. Chelsea's defense is leaky. I can see this AI team just marching on and on. Very scary team, but it's really interesting. I think if there's a reason to tune in here, even is following the AI team because beautiful, beautiful performance and lovely picks here. I'm really interested to see kind of how this progresses and at which point the AI team attempts to get Haaland.
Yeah, I don't see that happening to be honest because I've already noticed that Palmer has crossed Haaland. Like, so Haaland and Salah are the two highest projected players, and still they weren't in the optimal team for the past few weeks. But now Palmer's actually projected to score more points than them. So I don't see a world in which maybe
Yeah,
if
I would have
yeah
thought this would be the week to get Haaland,
yeah
given, like beautiful pictures, strong player. Yeah, interesting. Let's see how it goes.
Yeah, I think with Saka and Palmer having good fixtures, it'll probably go with them. But whenever Salah has good games, Salah's 2.5 million lesser than Haaland. So unless he's projected to score a lot less than him, I think it'll probably go with this kind of structure. Maybe, yeah. The only thing I feel a little bad about is it wanted Brennan Johnson, and I put his X-Men low, so it ended up with Madison. But let's see how that goes over the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on to my team. I'm actually pretty happy with how this team looks on paper. I mean, this is what we do for the wildcard planning, right? I think definitely Morgan Rogers is going to come in for Calvert-Lewin. Like, I'm 99% sure I'm doing that. But otherwise, like, all the attackers have good games. Haaland has a great game. I'm definitely captaining him. Three big defenders. Unless I hear that Lewis is not starting, then I'll play Mikalenko pretty okay with him playing Newcastle.
Is it the first game this time? The City game?
No, it's not the first game, but we do sometimes get leaks for the Saturday games anyway. Yeah, I mean, like, if I hadn't heard the leak about Lewis, I would have probably had Raya in goal and like Solanke in attack. Like, there was a 3 transfer move I made just a few minutes before the deadline. I'm not too worried about that. Havertz is definitely going to go for Solanke probably after this week because Solanke has great games, and as soon as I just wanted Havertz for the Leicester and Southampton at home because like even last week Southampton conceded 3 against Bournemouth, didn't look great. So hoping that small differential pays off. But then Solanke has Brighton away. And speaking of that, let's go into your team. And that could be a huge game. So last week also I felt like Brighton Chelsea would be very exciting. I didn't expect it to be this exciting. And Spurs are a little crazier than Chelsea also. So what are your thoughts?
I'm looking forward to that game. I hope it's as fun as the other Brighton games last weekend. Yeah, I think again really happy with this team. I don't see much wrong with it, honestly. Let's see. I think Haaland captain. We have quite a few common players who are very echoing similar thoughts. Yeah, there is potential. I just hope that the variance plays in kind of like my favor this week.
Yeah, and it mainly comes down to what Haaland and Saka do and what Palmer and Salah do. I think that's basically probably going to be the summary of the season, unless because I think these are the guys who are going to get your hat tricks. They're going to get your braces. Your mid-price players, even if there is a big variance, usually it won't vary by so much. And then add captaincy into the mix and everything gets doubled. So yeah, I think first few weeks we kind of got away with it where all premiums were doing well. And I guess whoever had Haaland and Salah were doing well. Now it seems to have kind of shifted to Palmer. But let's see how the next few weeks go. Okay, that brings us to the end of this week's podcast. Do join our mini league. The code is at the bottom so that we can go down further in our league standings. Any final words, Vikas?
Yeah, I think for those not doing well, it's still a marathon, not a sprint. Comforting words, hopefully. And yeah, best of luck for the weekend, and see you next week.
And that's very true, right? Like, it is honestly a marathon. It's only been 6 weeks. It's not even 20% of the season through. But I think we're already seeing that it's a little different to the previous seasons because the swings are still wild. We're still unclear as to what the team's going to be after the wild card. So yeah, I don't know if we'll actually bridge that gap, but it's exciting to have this new situation in front of us. Okay, thank you everyone.